It's obviously important for President Biden to be there as America's leader. But from a political standpoint, what is the image he's trying to project, and how important is it?
It's really important because it really is a struggle for democracy. I think, and we were talking about this before, the more he can get out there, every time Biden gets out and speaks, people are like, oh, he sounds pretty good. I mean, that State of the Union address was excellent. It was so.
They didn't say he sounds pretty good. They said he knocked it out of the park that night.
And he was so good, in fact, that Trump was like, he's on drugs. You know, remember the Trump world couldn't even like conceptualize it. So he needs to get out there. This kind of thing is good. He did this before the midterms, and you'll remember a lot of people in the media were like, this doesn't work. People don't vote on democracy. And in fact, it worked really well. So I think it's really good. Also, D-Day is really important. And, you know, World War II was one of the sort of, you know, the thing that sort of created American democracy in a different way, and also NATO.
Okay, that's kind of the thing, right? So the president is there marking D-Day, but sort of standing arm in arm with these other world leaders. Do you think it will be successful, or they're hitting the right tone, raising the alarm that this is a battle across the world against the rise in authoritarianism? That threat is real.
Well, you know, I used to work with McKay Coppins. You mentioned his piece at the top. This question, yeah, I know. This question all over the world about authoritarianism and what's happening to the conversation about democracy, what happens next in all these countries and all this sort of world system that we've been used to, is a big one. And what's remarkable about this to me is I think that when you put those two things back to back, they show just how different both of these candidates are who are running for president. You know, America, I talk to a lot of voters, I talk to people all over the country, and a lot of Americans are kind of sad and freaked out. They want to feel confident and good about being American again. They don't feel that right now. And Biden tells them there's a way to do that by building up from what we are used to as a country. The foundations that we have, build up. I'm going to go talk to NATO. I'm going to rebuild those alliances. We're going to have a country that you're used to. And Trump's argument is we're going to tear all these kinds of things down and, you know, prosecute Democrats, do politically motivated judicial things. The difference is so stark, and it is remarkable to me just how close the election is when you see how different the two guys are and the two messages that they have are.
How different they are, and those messages that Donald Trump is pushing, one would think are wildly unpopular. So who is he speaking to, and why is it sticking? Because the new sort of super wealthy set that's getting excited about him, that's all about tax cuts and deregulation. They cannot be down with any of this.
A lot of these Republican policies are not super popular, but they are, you know, look, we live in a media bubble, right? There's not that much media, mainstream media, that's getting to a lot of the people in this country.
All right, Glenn, let's talk about what Donald Trump and his allies are doing. Talk to us about this revenge mission, right? Steve Bannon saying this is a moment for obscure Republican prosecutors to make a name for themselves and go after Democrats. What?
You know, the Republicans are distinguishing themselves as the pro-crime party, plain and simple. When you see House Speaker Mike Johnson, you see Representative Jim Jordan and his weaponization of government committee. I mean, what they are doing, at least this is the way it looks to this old prosecutor, is they're obstructing justice. They're obstructing prosecutions of Donald Trump for political advantage. They're doing it whether they're state court prosecutions, whether they're federal court prosecutions. And I wish some prosecutors would actually rise up and begin to call them out and hold them accountable for it, because they seem to stand for nothing other than just a naked power grab in the way they perceive, I think, their chances of retaining power is to make sure they never break from Donald Trump. So I don't understand it, but I hope it comes back to haunt them come November.
Evan, Molly's correctly identified media bubble be damned. Let's actually talk about the truth, because Republicans are arguing that the justice system is being weaponized. But it is those very Republicans that are openly advocating for politically persecuting their opponents. And at the same time, while Donald Trump just stood trial, guess who else is? The president's son and New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. Like, at this very moment, What is going on here? On what grounds can Republicans say this?
Well, you know, sometimes I come on your show, you ask me these really hard questions. It's a difficult challenge for me to answer them. Got to really, dig deep.
You know what? If we knew the answers, we wouldn't have you on.
But sometimes these questions are just like straight up politics, like the most old school, boring politics you can kind of think of. And when you think of a person saying the judge that prosecuted my case, that judge is a bad judge. But the judge that is giving me good rulings in Florida, for example,
right,
or the judge that's prosecuting the case against Hunter Biden, or the judge that's doing that, those are good judges. This is just basic politics as it goes. It's like the idea is if it's against me, it's bad. If it's against them, it's good. And that's all it is. I mean, it's the most direct thing I've ever seen, at least in this cycle. It's just such an obvious political play.
So the whole Steve Bannon argument is, oh, well, you just opened the doors that if you're going to do this to Trump, we're going to do this to you?
Well, the whole thing is retribution, right? The idea is you are not allowed, if you try to do these prosecutions, we will get back at you. You need to be afraid of Republicans. And look, the whole party is basically about Trump now. I mean, name a Republican platform, one of the tenets of the party now.
Well, and
Trump?
Yeah.
Well, if you're in the Trump sphere, you're never doing mainstream media, so no one is going to look back at Steve Bannon and say, well, what about Bob Menendez? What about Hunter Biden?
But look, this cynicism is also very dangerous. I mean, one of the things you cover as a reporter is try the things that bind us together as a country. And we talk about this idea of attacking the judicial system, just saying that it's just fake. I mean, this is what they're saying. When someone says, "Look, you elect me, I'll prosecute everybody that you hate, and that's just how it works." And when they prosecute me, it's fake, and it's fake. Right. This stuff has real impact down the line, right? It is politics right now. It is people are making bets that they can say these things and get votes and get just enough of those swing state votes to win. But there is a really serious long-term impact to be thinking about here. When we take away the idea of the courts as being real, we don't really know what happens after that. And that is something that I am watching so closely when I do my reporting and I talk to these voters who really are concerned about the state of America, to come and tell them that this whole other chunk of it is not working, is also fake. I don't know what that means for the nation's sort of health in the long term.
Glenn, it's sort of this reminder of how extraordinary it was that a week ago, 12 ordinary New Yorkers took on the brave, bold, and difficult task of sitting on that jury and convicting Donald Trump. Because now, today we learned from Axios reporting that Trump allies are already talking about this idea that they want to throw DA Alvin Bragg in jail. What does that say to you, especially where Donald Trump was in 2016 to where he is today?
Yeah, it says the Republicans are the pro-crime party. I am thrilled that New York, a state jurisdiction, decided to do the hard work of holding Donald Trump accountable for just some of his crimes. And these were crimes that were designed to gain unfair advantage in the 2016 presidential election. And what did they get for it in New York? We have jurors who are being doxxed. We have witnesses who are being swatted. We have judges, family members, and prosecutors being put in harm's way, including by the Republican Party, who want to, as you say, Steph, go after Alvin Bragg for simply doing his job. And, the one thing that I think would probably go a long way to, kind of prod justice into wakefulness writ large is if the federal government began charging some of the hierarchy of the insurrection, the suits of the insurrection, as compared to the boots of the insurrection, the command structure. Because what happened on January 6th, Steph, is a federal problem, and it needs a federal solution. And for whatever reason, the feds seem content to let the states, whether it's New York or Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, Michigan, do the dirty work, the hard work of justice. And for whatever reason, the feds continue to just sort of sit back, as they did until we saw the House January 6th Select Committee begin to prod DOJ into wakefulness. So I would like to see the federal government start flexing its justice muscle and begin indicting some of these folks, including the ones that are presently unindicted co-conspirators in Donald Trump's federal prosecution in D.C.
So, Molly, what do Democrats, what does the Biden campaign do with this, right? How do they break through and explain to the American people this right-wing drive for vengeance? This ain't old school politics, okay?
Right.
This is dangerous.
Right. And I think we were talking about before, Donald Trump is an autocrat. I mean, that's just, he's running as an autocrat. He does these things which are anti-democracy, like pulling down the courts, the rule of law, the Constitution, the norms that we have lived by in this constitutional democracy. And I think that what Democrats have to do, and Biden has done a good job of this, but he just needs to be out there more. And then the vice president, who is really an effective messenger, she needs to be out there, too. And they both need to be out there, and they need to explain that these are the norms. And if these norms go away, we will no longer be the country that we our whole lifetimes have lived in. We'll be something closer to Hungary or Russia or Turkey. I mean, that's what it'll eventually be. And so I think they need stakes, not odds.
My God. All right, Glenn, I saved this question until the end because I know this story has you ready to bust out your black belt and start kicking. Today, the Georgia Court of Appeals basically froze the Fulton County election interference case, at least for now. Why is this happening? What does it mean?
Yeah, but for the New York result, justice seems to be going nowhere fast, and I think Georgia is now proving the point. Listen, appellate litigation can be a very slow, plodding, ordeal, and the Georgia Appeals Court just proved it by not only setting the argument in the appeal of the disqualification of District Attorney Fani Willis issue, which was rejected by Judge McAfee and Trump and company, appealed it. They set that off for October, but they have also sort of put a stay in place. So now Judge McAfee can do nothing but just kind of tread justice water until the Georgia Appeals Court finally resolves the appeal. So, look, there is no hope now of anything happening in Georgia before the November election. Of course, there's still a slim chance we might see something happen in D.C. if the Supreme Court deigns to decide the absolute immunity issue and return it to Judge Chutkan to put it back on the trial track. And, of course, down in Florida, Judge Cannon has made sure that that case will make zero progress.
Charlamagne, the irony is right now, there's a lot of people who just see your face this second or saw that we promoted you and they're going, I'm mad at him. I don't want to hear from him. Right?
Why?
Because of a soundbite they may have heard on some date that was taken out of context. And the irony is that's what this book is about.
Absolutely.
No one's actually taking the time to think and listen and learn.
That's right. Me and you've had these conversations, a lot of times because you can come on one of these platforms and if you dare to be objective, if you dare to be nuanced, if you dare to be critical, of both parties, if the right wing, the right media will take what they want to push their narrative, and the left is just not good at that. So the left ends up responding to the right's narrative, and then the left ends up, eating either their own or attacking people who aren't necessarily against them. I'm just having a nuanced conversation about, both parties.
But isn't small talk kind of how we're lying to ourselves, how we convince ourselves we're communicating, we're connected on social media, I like this, I like that, but we're not actually getting real.
That's why the title of the book is Get Honest or Die Lying, because I'm daring people to not just be honest with themselves, but to, stop lying to themselves and stop volunteering those lies to other people. Stop lying like you're open-minded. Stop lying like, you have nuanced conversations. Stop lying like you're objective. Stop lying like you can, put yourself in other people's shoes, because you have your opinion, you have your feelings, you have your narrative, and you're sticking to that, and you refuse to be moved by anybody.
The book is a lot about heart. But the heart that you write about isn't soft or warm. It's raw, it's real, and it sometimes can be perceived as rude.
It's funny. My mom always tells me that, she used to tell me, that me and my dad don't know how to talk to people. So, that's just been something I've been, trying to,
A massive communicator who can't talk to people.
Well, because my dad told me that the fastest way between 2 points is a straight line. And see, that's what I mean when I talk about, being real, because it's easy to be real with other people, right? Like you can look at somebody else and tell them what they're doing wrong or what they're wearing is whack or how they look is whack. But can you look in the mirror and do that to yourself? That is very hard for some people to do. To have those hard, uncomfortable conversations with themselves, that's very hard to do. And that's something that I use myself as a muse for that every single day.
In the book, you look at how politicians and lawmakers communicate in this inauthentic way, and you don't like it, right?
No.
But you hold Donald Trump to a different standard. You said, except Donald Trump. This guy knows how to get right to the heart of things and speak to people. But here's my issue with that. He might keep it real in his delivery, but it's all a hustle. Because the majority of words that he's saying are bald-faced lies.
Oh, absolutely. The chapter is called The Language of Politics is Dead. And what you said is absolutely true. But what I always say is that Republicans are more sincere about their lies than Democrats are about their truth. So a Republican, like guys like Donald Trump or, folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they'll sit right there, look you in the eye and tell you a bold-faced lie, but it sounds honest. But meanwhile, some Democrats could be standing on truth and they sound very shaky in their delivery. They don't sound confident about what it is that they're telling you. The Republicans, the conservatives, they sound very confident about the message, that they're delivering.
So why give them the platform? What does one need to do to address that? What's your advice?
What do you mean?
Right, so when Donald Trump is sitting there lying and lying, and so is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we're lifting them by giving them this attention, are we making a mistake?
No, I don't think we're lifting them. You can't ignore them. I mean, one guy was the former president of the United States of America, and, the other one is a congresswoman. So you can't ignore them. What I would tell folks, and what I have told a lot of people on the left, man, go on those conservative platforms. Go on those conservative platforms and actually have conversations with them. Like, it's easy for them to take you out of context when you're talking, on another network. They can take you out of context and, do what they want with your language or your rhetoric. But if you're actually there and their audience is watching you, it's very hard to be taken out of context. President Barack Obama used to go on Fox News, right? Like, you've got people like Gavin Newsom who go on, Fox News. And that's why you see, people looking at them in different ways. Like, Gavin Newsom's profile rose considerably. People even started talking about him.
Where Pete Buttigieg does some of his best work.
That's what I'm saying. So why run from it? If you're afraid that they're going to take you out of context, why not go there and have the conversation? Why are we running from a whole other side of America?
You don't support people getting canceled, but where do you draw the line?
I mean, it depends. Like, I'm not God, so who am I to cancel somebody?
I'm sorry, your name is
Charlamagne the God, right? But I'm not the God, right? And then it's like, canceling is subjective, because if you are, the owner of a network, or if you're a fan of somebody and you don't like something that they did, you can cancel them. You can unsubscribe from them. You can stop listening to their program. You can stop watching their TV show, stop buying their music. You can do that. But I mean, just as far as this whole social media era where we are, putting everybody through the court of public opinion and, we are the judge, jury, and executioner, like, who are we?
And everybody needs to fit in an exact category.
Why? Who are we? And I want to go back to something I said about, Trump and the language of politics is dead. He's made it to where politicians can be honest if they choose to be. He's not here's the thing. He's not a politician. He was
hold on a minute. Why do we keep saying he is a politician?
Well, now, but
he is a politician.
He's the executive. He was the executive producer of Celebrity
and a failed
Apprentice.
Businessman.
He was just a reality show star. So if somebody like that gets into politics, of course they're going to communicate better than the politicians, because the politicians are sitting there with their notes. And you've interviewed a bunch of them. You ask them a question, they're going to stick to the script. But ask them that same question again after they got rid of their talking points. Now they got to be honest. Now they got to be real. He's not really moving with no talking points. So you saw when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett last week called Marjorie Taylor Greene the blonde, bad-built, butch body.
Yes.
Yo, that was a beautiful moment, because finally somebody was like, yo, I'm not normalizing none of this BS that is coming from y'all. Now I'm going to check y'all on the BS that y'all keep spewing, because if you leave it unchecked, then it starts to get normalized in our society.
I want to ask you something a little personal. You grew up in rural South Carolina, right, where you had a long attention span, because you grew up at a time where you were spending a lot of time outdoors, where your internal clock was the sunrise and the sun setting.
That's right.
Fast forward 30 years, and you are in the middle of New York City. You have, in some instances, debilitating anxiety. Mm-hmm. And your advice for people is to unplug. is to get out there in nature, to literally ground yourself in the dirt and hug a tree.
Yeah, I was blessed to be born in 1978. So, I was born before a lot of this technology, and we came up in the era of technology. So I have both, both points of reference to know how, when you're disconnected from something, how good it can be. And, now at 45, about to be 46 years of age, I'm still that, kid growing up on a dirt road in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. I like to walk around barefoot, in my yard, and I like to do grounding, like in Japan, they call it forest bathing. I like to, put my back up against the tree and just sit out there and, just meditate. I go up there, go up the trees and put my hands on them. That's in the book too. I have a chapter called, Tree Hug the Block, just talking about how a lot of, being connected with nature helps to, reduce your anxiety, reduce your stress. If you're dealing with bouts of depression, man, sometimes just go outside, go in the ocean, say a prayer, look right up to the sun. We don't look up enough, Stephanie. That's the other thing too. I was just telling my cousin Tony that earlier. We was outside running, training, and I'm like, just look up. Look at the trees. Look at the clouds. That's
about gratitude.
You think about the world we're in. We're always looking down at our phones. And then I think about, like Tupac, when he said, keep your head up, I think about songs like Be Optimistic from Sounds of Blackness, where, as long as you keep your head to the sky, things will be okay. It's just it's got to be something to where they're keeping us constantly looking down. Why aren't we intentionally looking up enough? If there's all of these devices that are making us look down, we have to be intentional about looking up.